This is Jamal Saeed, and another wonderful afternoon, and I'm glad to have you with us on this webinar about leading and managing change. So welcome to this interesting webinar, I would say, about trying to understand change and what you do with it. I want to welcome those of you who have been with us over the past few webinars, and I want to welcome those who are new to this webinar. So welcome back, all of you. It's glad to see some of the familiar faces and some of the familiar names. Well, let me just do a quick introduction here. My name is Jamal Saeed, and I'm a senior consultant with Meirc. And I will give you a bit of background about me in a minute. But I would like you to keep in mind, the following. Change is a very interesting topic. But some people see it as, what do I do with change? I would like you to keep in mind when we talk through this topic this afternoon, think of it from a strategic point of view. And ask yourself, always ask yourself, this is something very important, and always do this, by the way. Always ask yourself, when change is happening, what is my position from change? What do I see? What do I do? Do I see opportunities? Do I take advantage of change? So I want you to think as a business person. I want you to take advantage of change. This means you have to think strategically of change. So don't think of it as just another topic. I want you to think of it from a business perspective. How can I take advantage of change, and how can I plan for it? And that's where the name of this webinar comes in, leading and managing change. The leading part, I will tell you very quickly. The leading part is because leaders normally, they are the ones who deal with change quite a bit, don't you think? As a matter of fact, based on my observations over the years and my experience, I find that leaders are the ones who deal with change. So let's go ahead and start. I welcome you all. Thank you for being with us this Thursday afternoon. Dubai is a bit hot. Dubai is a little bit warm these days. But here in this room, and I hope in your offices, I hope you're enjoying a cool atmosphere because this topic is quite important. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be talking about leading and managing change. It might take about 55 minutes. Hopefully we'll give you more time to ask questions as well. So make sure you ask questions. Don't hesitate. Okay, I will do my best to answer, and if I can't answer all your questions, please make sure you note my email down and send me an email. I'll be more than happy to hear from you and respond, if I could, to your question. So, a little bit about Meirc. Meirc is a very interesting company. I'd just like to give you 1 minute about Meirc, because Meirc, we also went through change ourselves. We were established in Beirut in 1958, and then we moved to Dubai in 1991. But I think we got a major change here. You see, this is what I'm talking about. In 1991, there was a change in the region. Something's going on. And I think we took full advantage. We took full advantage of that opportunity. So we saw the opportunities when change was coming in. So we established our offices. We kept selling our products and services, outstanding, high-quality products and services. And then recently, in 2014, we established our company, another sister company called Plus Training. And, as you can see here, we also industry-specific training. We provide industry-specific training. So between both these wonderful companies, we can give you a very healthy, wonderful portfolio of products. And I'd love to hear from you. And if you need any assistance, please just send me an email, and I'll be more than happy to direct you to the right person. Who am I? For those of you who have listened to me before, I have an interesting experience, but this time I would like to cover my experience from a change perspective. So you see, when I joined Pepsi Cola International, it was an eye-opener for me. I joined an international company, very powerful, very marketing-based company, but in the Middle East, Pepsi Cola was pretty much operating, you can say, on its own until Coca-Cola came in. Now that's change. Because all of a sudden you have a giant in Pepsi Cola International who has been around for a few years, a few decades you can say, and then here comes a very big player in Coke. So you can imagine the amount of change that Pepsi had to make in order to keep up with competition. It wasn't a very nice fight. It was a very tough fight. And we had to change lots of things internally. We had to accommodate many of the things we wanted to do. We had to move very fast. So change was not very comfortable. It was very much needed. And this is what I call urgency. There was an urgency with change, ladies and gentlemen. So when there is an urgency, we had to change. And this could be a good strategy, but sometimes if you don't react to urgency, sometimes you get yourself out of the market. So be very careful. Change opens opportunities, but could also be a threat to the existence of companies that we all work in. So, and then I moved into Sun Microsystems. Also in Sun Microsystems, there were lots of changes. The company went through tremendous disruptions. And you know, all of you use technology, and you know the story with technology. I don't need to tell you. Every day there's something new. So Sun Microsystems had to cope a lot with change, and changes in technology, changes in partner, changes in market conditions, changes in industry, and sometimes we had economic change. Unfortunately, because of some of the changes, and some of them were very, very powerful, the company couldn't keep up. And eventually it was bought by Oracle. So as you can see, the company, Sun Microsystems, is now part of Oracle. And that was due to change. So my first experience was relatively good. We had to fight. The second one, we were fighting, but it was a losing battle. Why? Maybe they were not very well prepared for the change that was coming down the road. The last company was Cisco Systems. They were in the same situation like Sun Microsystems, but they managed to survive. And I think Cisco is doing well today. They can be doing better. I think that they are a fantastic company, but I think they have come a long way since those days when technology was, moving very fast. One of the things that technology is facing today is cloud computing, for example. So what is companies doing about cloud computing? These are all challenges that change brings in. Look around you. Look in your hand. Look at your phone. Look at your iPhone, your Samsung, your smartphone. Look at your clothes. Something is happening there in terms of change. Are you keeping up with it? Are you reacting to it? Are you innovating? All of these things, hopefully, we will cover in this webinar, which will take us for about top of the hour, around 3 o'clock. So here we go. Now, so hopefully in this webinar, I'll be able to demonstrate a few things about the nature of change, also about the competencies of change. I mean, what do you need to handle change? I think this is very critical, okay? This is very, very critical. Also, what kind of models can you take on board? Because at the end of the day, you need some sort of a framework. I mean, come to think of it, it's like everything else. If you have a framework, you can use it and you can apply it properly. And the fourth one, hopefully I'll give you some technique to deal with resistance to change. Change is not easy. I have been through it. You're going through it. So how do we deal with resistance to change? And the last one is, of course, how to implement things so that the culture in a company can take effect, because there will be an interesting fight from the culture. Culture is not going to take change sitting down. Culture is going to stand up and try to fight, because you're bringing a new culture. You got my point? So here we go. I'm going to share with you a few points here. Throughout this, try to take some notes, because it's very important to remember that change is something strategic. You don't want to lose on opportunities when change comes, and you want to be careful of the threats when change comes as well. All right? So what is change at the end of the day? All right? During the course of this webinar, I'm going to be asking some questions, so please participate. You know my style. This is something that I always like from everybody, is to just jump in and answer the questions. So here comes the first question. Okay? There's nothing permanent except change. So here we go. Can you please answer the following? There's nothing permanent except change. Let's see how many of you will answer this question and what kind of reply would I get. Very interesting, very powerful. Okay, great. Good participation. Well done, guys. This is very good. I'll give everybody about 10-15 seconds just to be fair to everybody, especially those who have joined us recently. So those who just joined us, welcome. Welcome to this webinar. I hope you find it useful and something that you can use in your work and as well as in your life. So we have, that's very good. Excellent, excellent. I'll give another few seconds just to make sure that everybody who wants to participate, they get the chance to participate. All right, so in the next 5 seconds, I'm going to try to stop this one. I'm going to end the voting for this. Thank you for all your answers. And I'm going to end the voting now, and I'm going to share with you, share the results. So here are the results. I hope you see it. So good participation, very good, thank you very much. And of course the answer is true. And you know what? This statement is coming from Heraclitus. I don't know if you've heard of Heraclitus, but Heraclitus was a Greek philosopher. He lived around 300 BC. He lived back then when Greece was a very important empire, you can say. And he noticed that change is something very permanent. Probably he saw it in the nature, he saw it in the seasons, he saw it in the changes of the leaves. But he definitely will be surprised today how much change we go through. How much change we go through. Can you imagine? Have you ever thought how much change we go through? So if Heraclitus will be living today, probably he would say, you see, I told you so. So here we go. Let me now go back to the presentation. Now, one of the key things is leaders, they see change quite well. This is a very famous saying by John F. Kennedy. He said, change is the law of life. And those who look only to the past or present are certain to miss the future. So look at this. This is a very powerful statement. I mean, you have to be very smart to notice these things. And sometimes we notice it at an older age. If you notice it at your age right now, well done and good for you, because this means that you're understanding how things are impacting us when change happens. This is another lady. Her name is Rosabeth Moss Kanter. Rosabeth Moss Kanter. She's a professor of business at the Harvard Business School. I think she retired now, but she is a very influential person. And when she talks about change, or when she talked about change, she talked about change from a corporation perspective. And this is the intention here. I don't want to sit down and talk about change just for the sake of change. I want you to take back something that you can use in your companies, in your organization. So look how important what she's saying. It says that the corporations that will succeed and flourish in the times ahead will be those that have mastered the art of change. I'd like to stop here for a second. I'd like to ask you, and imagine your organization. Are you guys ready where you are? Are you ready for the change that's taking place? This is very powerful. And if you take a minute and you think about it, and you think about all the companies that are around you, you start to realize those who can cope with change are really doing very well. And those who can't cope with change are not doing so well. So what is the secret here? Based on what she's saying, what Dr. Rosabeth, what she's saying, she said, creating a climate encouraging the introduction of new procedures and new possibilities, encouraging anticipation and response to external pressure, encouraging listening to new ideas from inside the organization is fundamental for organizations and corporations to succeed today. So I hope that you are as innovative, as creative as I can see, because that is where change starts taking place. It is with you, ladies and gentlemen. Young people, vibrant people, enthusiastic people who are willing to share and accept the change and get ideas out of it and share it up the ladder so that your company keeps growing. All right? This is something very important. I'll take you back in the past. And as you can see from Benjamin Franklin, he also said something very deep. You know, look at this. Look at this. Just think about it and how important what he's saying. He's saying that to get the bad customs of a country changed and new ones, though better introduced, it's necessary first to remove the prejudices, this means the biases, of the people, enlighten their ignorance. Of course, I don't know what's coming my way, so I'm ignorant about change, and convince them. Look, this is the most important one. Convince them that their interest will be prompted by the proposed change. Isn't that interesting? What's in it for me, I call it. If there's something in it for me, I'll probably act with change. So whenever you are thinking of change within your organization, never forget to ask around and say, what would people get from this change? Because if you do change for the sake of change, you're not going to go very far and people will not support you. But if you're doing change for the right reasons and people see benefit to themselves as well, I think they will like the idea about change, and they will resist it less. So remember, resistance, we're going to be talking about this one in a minute. So what's the conclusion? The conclusion is that change is something that daily occurrence. It's always constant, guys. The pace is accelerating. I think you vouch for that, and I think you agree with me that the pace has been going through the roof, and it won't slow down, unfortunately. And the challenge is, how do you, as a business person, keep up with all of this? Well, let's find out let me see if I can help you here and give you some good ideas about handling change. And definitely would love to see you in our courses. This way you can also participate on a much bigger scale and take with you some very interesting tools. So understanding change. Here is another question I like to ask you, and I look forward to you participating. Here we go. Change management is about taking into consideration the people side of things when disruptions occur. True or false? Let me see how good you are with this. Here you go. I'll give you a chance to answer. Go ahead. Let me see if you're gonna answer this interesting, statement, and how do you look at it? Change management is about taking into consideration the people side of things when disruptions occur. Oh, very good participation. Very good. We're going up here. Excellent. Excellent. Well done. Very good. I can see that some of you are thinking about it, but that's okay. Thinking about something, that's not bad at all. Very good. Very good. Wow, we're going up here. All right. So I'm going to give you another 5 seconds. If you can squeeze in your answer, do so, because I want to make sure I give you a chance to also go through the other slides. So, okay, I'm going to give you another 4 seconds. All right. Yeah, I think we have a better participation here. All right. Okay. So I'm going to stop here and I'm going to share with you the results. So here's the results. Can you see what you're doing here? Fantastic. Very good participation. Well done. Well done. So, well, as a matter of fact, it is true. Okay. Look, from what experts tell you, from my experience, from what you read in the books, from what leaders in companies tell you, that when we talk about change management will not work unless you think of the people side. That's why we call change management. We don't call it a project management. You see, that's a big difference. Because when you talk about projects, sometimes we tend to forget about people and just, implement the project, implement the task and deliver. But sometimes we tend to forget the people side of things. And this is very critical. Keep in mind always, whenever you're dealing with change, how is change impacting others? Similar to what Benjamin Franklin said. He said, you know what, if I'm doing change here, what's in it for them, what's in it for me, what's in it for everybody? So let's go back to the slides now and continue our story, because this is a very important story to make sure that we deal with it. So here we go. So whenever we talk about change and change management, it is the process, tools, and techniques to manage the people side of change and to achieve the required business outcomes. Of course, whenever you have change, you have certain goals you want to achieve. And this is very, very critical. But on the other side as well, change management incorporates the organizational tools that can be utilized to help individuals make successful personal transition, resulting in the adoption and realization of change. And there's a very important word over there. I'm going to just put the pen underneath it, transition. There's a transition, ladies and gentlemen. All of us go through these transitions, and this transition, I tell you, sometimes it's very nice, but sometimes it can be very painful, because transitioning is part of the change process. You're moving from one thing to another. You're moving from one area to another. You're moving from one point to another. And that's very, very critical. And hopefully that transition is taking you to a better position that you want to achieve. Of course, otherwise, why would we change, right? All right. So organizational change then is both a process in which an organization changes structure and strategies, operational methods. So you can see when we talk about organizational change, so many things are involved. And in every aspect of these things, people are there. And at the end of the day, you want to make sure that the effect of this change in the organization is understood very well, and that we're managing it very well, because people are impacted. Otherwise, the resistance is going to go up. So organizational change can be continuous or can occur in continuous or distinct periods of time. However, so here comes a very interesting point of view. The next 3 slides are very, very good. So pay attention. Look at this. Why change happens. When I told you that I worked for Pepsi-Cola International and I worked for Sun Microsystems and I worked for Cisco, many times what happened is that change came either from inside or came from the outside. So I would like you to imagine, what could be the causes for internal change? Can you think of some? What could be the causes for external change? Can you think of some? So why don't I give you here about 15 seconds? Think of it, participate, throw some comments there, because internally or externally, change can be caused. And then I will share with you some of these things, that are actually considered internal or external causes of change. Yeah, internal change due to mapping and restructuring. Well done, that's very good. Taysir Ismail said, Jamal, it is budget. I can't agree with you more, Taysir. That's very good, well done. Externally could be the change in market. Well done, Mr. Ahmed Munir. That's very good. Political influence. Very good. Well done. Very proud of you guys. So I'm glad that you're observing these things around you. So here we go. Whenever we talk about internal change, it could be a change in the vision and mission. It could be style of leadership. It could be culture. It could be organizational structure, as well as strategy, workforce utilization, policies and procedures. I'm sure that all of you either enjoy or suffer from policies and procedures. Systems capabilities and product itself. Sometimes you want to introduce a new product into the market. That could be a change by itself. I see also here that Tariq is telling me, Jamal, it's systems. Well done, Tariq. I like that quite a bit. On the other side also you have the external change. Look at that. And Dana said, Jamal, it's technology. Well done, Dana. You nailed it. Because when you talk about external change, you have the customers changing their taste. You're one of the customers, by the way. One day you want to buy a certain purse, and when it changes, you go and you buy another purse. You want to buy a suit, the suit has changed, you go and buy another suit. So customers can cause the change. Competition can cause the change. Technology, like Dana said, can cause the change. As well as, rules and regulations by government. So Lucina is saying, Jamal, healthcare, absolutely. Government regulations can cause change, as well as channel, partners, direction of the industry. So all of these things could be external part of the change. So change can be coming from outside, could be coming from inside. All right, well done, Tariq. You're participating very well. Thank you, sir. Now, types of change. So what kind of change do I normally notice? What kind of change do you normally notice? Now, we try to classify change into 3 types. The first one, we call it the adaptive change. Now, this is the kind of change that doesn't happen very fast, very strong, very powerful. It kind of gets into the system and we see the effect of it, but it doesn't, it's kind of a familiar practice. You say, you know what, I won't like to handle checks in the bank this way, and then you introduce something new to it. So it kind of, introduce a new step, a new task, or new something into an adaptive change. So you're adapting with the change. But the second one is very interesting as well. I call it innovative change. And innovative change can happen to a certain practice within the company. Like if you are a manufacturing company, you can introduce a new manufacturing thing into your line. If you are a delivery company, you can change your delivery of products. Similar to what's happening with Amazon these days, where they said, we sell in the delivery business, but we would like to deliver using drones, for example. That's very innovative. You still deliver stuff, but you are innovative now. And as talking about Amazon, I'm sure that many of you understand the change that Amazon is bringing to our life as well. That's a company that's doing lots of change in our lives. And then you have radical change. Now, that's very interesting. And radical change, this is where if you're not strong enough, you can actually get yourself out of the market. So you have to be ready for that one. And nothing prepares you for radical change more than having the right leadership who can see that and prepare for that. And as you can see here at the bottom line, when we're talking about adaptive change, the impact, the intensity is not that high. It's very relatively low. But when we go into the left-hand side here, the right-hand side, the intensity is quite high. The complexity is very, very high. The uncertainty is very high, but on the other side, it is low. So radical change can be very disruptive. Well, Mr. Ahmed Munir is telling me, Jamal, how about Nokia? Can't agree with you more. You see, Nokia underwent a radical change. Somebody came to the market and changed the rules of the games in a radical way. And, you have to give Nokia some credit. They tried to exist. But honestly, it was probably very, very, very tough. So you ask me, what did leadership do? Well, maybe they did not take leadership very serious. Maybe they did not take the change very seriously. That could be one. I'm assuming here, so forgive me. I'm not trying to put words in Noxia's mind, because they had their own reasons, I'm sure, and I'm sure that we're going to hear some interesting books and read about some interesting books at the end of the day. However, regardless of whether it is adaptive change, innovative change, or radical change, there is a transition. I told you there is a transition. This is the transition right over here. You are here, present situation. You are here in the red. You want to go to the desired future. That's where you see yourself. That's why we call vision and mission. But in between a transition, that transition requires very careful thinking, requires understanding of the obstacles, requires very strong strategies, requires dealing with resistance, requires overcoming obstacles, requires strong management, strong leadership, strong team, so that you can transition from this point to the desired future that you see. Now, what's interesting though is, what are the obstacles that we face? Can you think of some of the obstacles that we face when we are crossing this bridge or crossing this transition bridge? What could be the obstacles that you face? Now, we talked about the causes, but the obstacles can also be very, very powerful. Now, one of the obstacles that was mentioned was budget. Of course, maybe the budget is not there. So what can I do? That's a big obstacle, but can you think of other ones? Let me see if you can guess a few, okay? I'll give you a couple of minutes. Okay. People, yeah, people themselves, well done. Staff themselves, excellent. Subha is saying lack of information. Subha, you are 100% correct. Okay. Attention of the staff, well done, Lamis. That's very, very nice. People mentality, you bet. And then Dana said another one, culture. That's very powerful. And I tell you one thing, watch out for culture. It's the one of the most difficult and most aggressive that will fight change. I'm not kidding. So here we go. Thank you, Amal. Thank you for your participation. So some obstacles of change, limitation of resources. You don't have enough people. Increasing workload. The staff all of a sudden they feel that, you know what, I'm doing enough here and you're asking me to do additional work. Well, when change is happening, lots of things are happening as well. Lack of clarity. You bet. Nobody's telling you what's going on and there's not enough information. There's no communication strategy. People by nature resist change. Lack of positive motivation. Another one. Communication problem. And then of course differences in competencies. But in addition to what you said, as you can see, the obstacles can be many. The only way that you can overcome the obstacles is by thinking strategically and planning accordingly. Now, so I'm going to get into it slowly but surely, but let's think of this. The reason that transformation or change efforts fail is the following. These are a few only. There are many, many reasons. But first of all, complacency. In many books, and in my book specifically, and I hope I can convince you, complacency is one of the main reasons why people don't change. And what's complacency? Complacency is being happy with the status quo. Happy with what you have and say, you know what, I'm doing well, I don't need to change. And this is something very important for you to observe going forward, because complacency can be stopping you from moving forward. So you're satisfied with the status quo and said, why do I need to change? The other one is lack of leadership, because remember what the reason I call this program leading and managing. Leaders are the ones to make sure that they bring change or drive change. So if you are in a comfort zone, like Haytham is saying, be careful. Be careful of that comfort zone, because it could be your detriment. The same thing, lack of vision, under communicating the vision, not removing obstacles, not anchoring change in the corporation so that the new culture takes place. So you have to be careful. The efforts, transformation failed for many, many reasons. So now we said we have obstacles, we have transformation. So what do I do with it? Here, kind of where we start. I'm going to give you a framework here. This is a very nice framework. I really like it. I always use it all the time. And this is what we call the McKinsey 7S framework. So if you like to start thinking about what's going on with change, how do I see it? Where do I go? How do I approach it? This is a good place, okay? Because it is the McKinsey 7S, and the reason it is 7S is because it has all the words there starts with S. So you have the structure, the strategy, the system. So you look at it. It says, do we need to change the strategy? Is it about time? The structure, the organization structure. Do we need to change it? Systems, the same thing. And then you have and these three ones that I just mentioned, we call them the hard ones. You know, we call them the hard ones because they are difficult. They are like roots that go into the organization, and sometimes it's difficult to pull them out. Just think of the systems that you are using right now. If you have a logistics and manufacturing system, a financial system, it's not easy to just pull it out. It's going to take lots of time and it's very painful. That's why we call it hard. But you have other things that we call the soft ones. The soft ones are the dark blue: shared values, skills, staff, style. They are quite as important, but they are easier to deal with and decide on them very fast. Why? Because they are not as rooted into the organization as the other ones are. But all of them are important. So my advice is, when you want to evaluate and diagnose change in your organization, start with this one. This is a very nice framework. And ask yourself, do we need to change our values? Do we need to change our skills? Do we need to change the skills of our staff? Do we need to hire new people? Do we need to let go of some people? And that's something normal. Remember, I told you, you have to think as a business person. And as a business person, you have to make some interesting decisions. Now, whenever you are dealing with change, there are lots of stakeholders. Lots of people are interested. And some of them are not interested. But nonetheless, you have to understand that there are many people who are understanding or trying to know what's going on. Some of them are very, very much interested. Some of them could be against you. So who are the stakeholders? So there are many stakeholders that you need to take into consideration when you're launching a change initiative. We have a list here. For example, your boss is a stakeholder. Shareholders are stakeholders. Government, the press, the analysts, the lenders, the customers. So as you can see, all of them are stakeholders. And you need to take that into consideration. And how do you analyze it? Well, I'm going to give you a very interesting tool here to show you how do you analyze stakeholders. So bear with me, it's in the next slide. Here we go. Whenever you analyze stakeholders, always look at it from the power and the interest perspective. Okay? You got that? Whenever you analyze stakeholders, ask yourself how much power that stakeholder has, how much interest do they have? And based on that one, you can start plotting these stakeholders into this graph. So if a stakeholder is not interested at all, and they don't have much power, well, at least you have a strategy here, is to monitor them, keep an eye on them. However, if you have somebody who's not interested but very powerful, keep them satisfied, because you never know when they might become very interested. And if you have some people who are very, very interested, but they don't have much power, your strategy here is to keep them informed. And if you have those who are very, very interested and those who have lots of power, you have to manage them closely, very closely, and you have to have the right tools, communication skills, reporting, all of these things at hand so that you tell them what's going on. Otherwise, if they are the stakeholders with lots of power and lots of interest, they could stop you from your change initiative. So that's why use this one. This is very, very nice and very powerful. Now, let's move into the next topic. What are the competencies of change champions? And here comes in a very interesting question. Can you please answer the question for me? Change champions do not require any specific competencies to lead and manage change. What do you think? Can you help me answer that one, please? Okay, so here you go. I'm going to answer this one. Let me help you answer. So go ahead. Now, I open the poll for you. Change champions do not require any specific competencies to lead and manage change. I like the answer already. Well done. I'm worried about some of the answers, but I will share the outcome with you, so at least you can see, and we take it from there, what could be the right answer. Very good participation and very good response. Well done, guys. This is very, very good. I'm very proud of you. Thank you. Thank you for your participation. I'll give you a few seconds before I close the poll on this question. Okay. So here we go. Wow. Good job, you guys. Well done. Allow me to close it just because of the sake of time. Otherwise, I would have allowed you more time. So here we go. I'm going to share the results with you. 75% participation. Well done, all of you. And many of you have spotted it. Change champions require specific competencies, ladies and gentlemen. They do require certain competencies. Some of these competencies, you will find them as common competencies, but they could be quite important, more important than other competencies when you are dealing with change. Why? Remember what I said. Change management is about dealing with people. So you have to really focus on the competencies that deal with people in a very big way, but also deal with those that have to do with the business that you're trying to change. So that's why the combination of competencies can be quite interesting. So the question is definitely, the answer is question, definitely false. So here we go. What are the competencies that we usually recommend? You have to understand the business. You have to. You have to do some coaching skills, because you're going to be using quite a bit of coaching here. Some presentation skills. What do you think? Of course, you're going to be standing up in front of people and telling them how change is happening. How about relationship building? Don't you think that you need to build relationships here? I am sure you agree with me. How about negotiations? Well, remember what I said. When you have stakeholders, you have to look at the power and the interest. And if somebody with lots of power, make sure that you negotiate with them. Now, Amran is telling me, Jamal, how about communication? Amran, of course. Communication is very important, my dear friend. From observing, model building, questioning skills, presentation skills, conflict management. Well done, Wafa. All of these things are very important. So, as you can see, competencies, when you're dealing with change, such competencies are critical for you. Now, moving on. So how do you develop these competencies? Well, one of the key things is participate more in business, work in change initiatives, work on understanding the business, and you start developing these things, and also develop on yourself. Okay, so that's very good. Risk analysis. Thank you, Muhammad. That's a very good one. So what are the approaches and strategies to lead and manage change? Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of change. So I would like to leave you with something very important here. Now, this is something very critical. Whenever we work with change, okay, there are certain things I'd like to share with you. So first of all, answer the following questions. No need to evaluate the impact of change initiatives or to apply any specific strategy behind them. True or false? Let me kick in this one. There you go. Try to answer this one. What do you think, guys? No need to evaluate the impact of change initiatives or to apply any specific strategy behind them. I'm not sure about that one. Doesn't sound right to me, but let me see how you answer. Very, very good. Walid is saying false. Walid, good job, man. That's very good. We're hitting our record number here. We're coming up to the, 75%. Oh, we got it. That's very good. Well done, you guys. I'm very proud of you. Let me show you what you have done. So here comes the answers. I'm going to share with you the results. Look at that. So you are right. When you're dealing with change and change initiatives, it's very important you evaluate the change. You have to evaluate the change. Before moving into a change initiative, ask yourself, should I do it or not? So I'm going to give you some clues over here. At the same time, once you understand that change has to happen, you have to put a strategy. So let's go back to the presentation right now. Here we go. Now, here comes Mr. Kurt Levin. Kurt Levin was very, very smart. And he came up with what we call the force field analysis of change. And the reason that we call it the FFA, by the way. And the reason he did this, he said, you know what? Whenever there's a change, or organization is going through some change, there's always some forces that either help with the change or resist change. So what he did, he came up with a very interesting tool, and he called it the force field analysis. How does the tool work? Look at this. Basically, what you do is whenever you put your initiative, you have a sheet of paper like this. In the middle, you say the present state or desired state where you want to go, and then ask yourself, what are the driving forces? So you start listing all these forces that drive change on the left-hand side or the right-hand side, depending how you design your sheet of paper. Because we usually give these sheets of paper in our courses. And the other side, you get restraining force. You said, what are the restraining forces that are driving us here? And you start seeing how many of the forces are for and how many forces are against. However, it's not enough just to list the forces. You also have to give it a weight. It's very important to give it a weight so that you understand how much, at the end of the day, you're going to get the score. If the driving forces score 50 and the restraining forces score 25, listen, this sounds like it's a good place to start. But if you have 25 against 25, you can imagine that these forces are equal to each other, huh? So you see my point. And then if the restraining forces are much stronger than the driving forces, then maybe you have to think twice about it and say, what can I do to make the driving forces stronger? Or what can I do to reduce from the restraining forces? You see, I told you, think of change as a strategy. This is very important, guys. Please, going forward, whenever you think of change, think of it as a game. What can I do to make that a good one? Whenever we think of strategy, KPIs are very, very important. Okay, now here comes the strategic approach that I always recommend. And this writer, John Carter, is one of my favorite writers when it comes to change. He has some fantastic books. He has great books, and I highly recommend that you read more about it or attend one of the courses, because I have a very nice book, a workbook that talks and takes you through the 8 steps of changes. So John Carter has said there are 8-step change model that helps you move from point A to point B in a very good systematic way, strategic way. And this is one of the things that I like you to focus on. So what are these 8 steps? Here we go. The first step that we always recommend is establish a sense of urgency. You see? And this is something very interesting. And where did we establish the sense of urgency? When we did the force field analysis with Kurt Levin. So we said, do we have the urgency or not? Now, if you have the urgency, this means that this is very good. This means that, listen guys, we have the urgency to do it. We have managed to overcome our complacency. Once you establish the urgency, and you say that it's time for us to move forward, you have to create a team. You have to create the guiding coalition. This is a very powerful step, and I will share with you some of the characteristics of this leadership team, because this guiding coalition is a leadership team. Okay? And then once you create the team has to develop a strategy and a vision and a mission behind this activity. Because you have to inspire people, ladies and gentlemen. You have to inspire them and tell them, look guys, we're going to go to that location. Are you willing to go with us? Once they agree to it and you have a strategy, you have to start making sure that you communicate the change vision. You have to let people know where you're heading, why you're doing it, why it's important to do so. Once you have a communication plan which you have to communicate on a continuous basis, you have to empower your people. You know what the word empower means? Empower means give power to the people to participate, to give ideas, to change. Did you hear that? Because if you don't tell people and you don't empower them, change is going to move very, very slow. So you need people on your side. So empowering them is very important to get them on board. Buy-in. Well done, Ahmed. So once you do that, you start focusing on, listen guys, we have to convince the people that this change is happening, so you start generating short-term wins. Like in any project, you have to have short-term wins. So once you have the strategy, you say, what do I need to deliver in the short term? Did you see that? This is very critical. So once you deliver in the short term and you are successful, people start believing in the change that you're doing. Once your short-term wins are more and more and people are happy with the change and they believe in the change, you can take a bigger, piece of the pie and you can make bigger changes. So now you start producing more change. But you cannot do it without the short-term wins, because the short-term wins build your credibility and build the trust. Once you do that and you are really working with some big change, we call the last step, which John Carter calls it, called anchoring the new approaches in the culture. This means that the existing culture is starting to change. Did you see that? So this is very, very critical. Let's move on. So, as I said, watch out for complacency. So I would like you to ask these questions when you are back at work. Look around you. Share these questions with your leaders. Share it with your management. Talk about it. Say, listen, these are questions that help you understand if you have a complacent workplace or not. Because if there's complacency, urgency is not going to be seen. But if you are fighting complacency and you have a vibrant workplace, it's easy for you to see the urgency. Some of the questions that we can ask, our discussions are inward focused. Many companies that only focus internally, they cannot see the change coming from outside. Did you see that? The same thing, do people regularly blame others for problems? That's another thing that I watch out for when I'm dealing with companies, I'm working with change with them. I see if there's lots of blame. When people blame each other, that's not a good sign. As well as our failures of the past discussed not to learn. This means that they talk about the past just to, not to learn from the experience. That's very sad. Some other questions that you can ask, for example, do you have a passive aggression exist around big issues? So people basically are very aggressive. They only voice strong concern, but they don't give solution. And also that's not very good. All right. So these questions are for you to ask. Make sure you ask these questions. This will help you in terms of improving the level of urgency within the organization. And as I said, change is happening at a much higher pace than before. Now, who do I pick for my team? Whenever you pick a team and you put a team together, make sure that those that you select, they are in a position of power. Of course, you want somebody who can, provide you with some authority to some extent. But also you want the expertise, the people with expertise, because they know the business, huh? You also might select people with lots of credibility. Maybe they have lots of charisma, people like them. And you say, you know what, can you help us with this? Because people like you, people love to listen to you. The same thing with leadership. This means that do they walk the talk? This means that if I say I'm going to do this, do I do it? Because remember, when you are dealing with change, you are actually applying new behavior. And if you behave based on the new rules and policies and procedures, this means that you are setting a leadership example for others. All right? Very good. And when we talk about vision, look at this. This is the impact of vision. If the vision is only coming from the top, from the upper management, without much engagement, honestly, it's not going to go far. People will not believe in it. So it's going to make a scratch. This is scratch, that's all. It's a small scratch. But the existing culture will dominate. If you do a little bit more micromanagement and you start asking people to participate and this and that, but it's more around micromanagement, well, you can make some difference, but I don't think it's going to last that long. So you really have to make the vision very, very impressive. So spend some time on making sure that the vision is very influential so that people can see where you're heading. And this should help you, break through the barriers and the obstacles that will face organizational change. You see, this is very important. Now, this is a very nice image about short-term wins. As you can see in case number 1 here, if you don't apply short-term wins, you're going to go back to the old ways of doing things. If you don't have that many short-term wins, a little bit more than the previous one, your change is going to last a little bit more, but it's going to go down again. But look at the last one. If you continuously talk about and you succeed in achieving short-term wins, this means that the chances of the new culture lasting is much, much bigger. Did you see this one? Look at this one. Short-term wins at 14 and 26 months. So this means that you have to crank lots of short-term wins to build credibility and to make sure that people believe in what you're doing. Okay? Very good. This is a very important chart. You have to remember this one. So why do people resist change? Ladies and gentlemen, can you help me answer this question? Okay? People resist change with the same level of intensity. Let's see if this is something that, I think it's this one here. People resist change with the same level of intensity. Can you please participate? Answer this question, please, for me. People resist change with the same level of intensity. I'm going to share with you some very interesting statistics here. Okay? I'm going to share with you some very interesting statistics. Give you another 5 more seconds, just to be fair for everybody. Those who would like to participate and share their opinion with this. Thank you. Thank you very much. 2 more seconds and I like to make sure I'm going to end the voting. Now let me share with you what I see here. Here we go. Here we go. Look at that. Many of you said false. I like that. I congratulate you. Well done. Because people react to change in different ways. Okay, so let me go back to my slide. This. The world hates change, yet it's the only thing that has brought progress. Charles Kettering, very influential guy, and he has seen his share of change. As a matter of fact, he brought change to our lives as well in many ways. He's the one who worked for General Motors. He created a company called Delco, which probably you hear about AC Delco and batteries and everything. So he was a very smart man, and he had 186 patents. With every patent, he brought change into our life somehow. So why do people resist change? Loss of control. They don't like it. I'm losing control. I'm losing authority. Excess uncertainty. I don't know where I'm going. Surprise, surprise, all of a sudden you spring change on people and say, here you go. That's not very good. Everything seems different. Sometimes you ask this question, listen, it used to be this way. It used to be that way. Loss of face. You don't want to fail. And you don't want to lose your face in front of others. Otherwise, you're going to say, you're afraid of how people react to you in case you fail with change. But listen, guys, nothing comes without some mistakes, and nothing happens without failures. So don't be afraid. Concerns about competence. Of course, you shared this with me before. Competence is very important. More work. Well, we talked about this one. Ripple effect. Oh, this is very powerful. Past resentment. What does it mean? It means that change happened in the past and then people don't feel about it. So they see the change again and say, uh-oh, I don't want to be part of this again. And sometimes the threat is real. Yes, of course, sometimes the threat is too big that it can really wipe an entire organization out. Similar to what we shared, Nokia could be one of them. And I see it here. He's saying, Jamal, how about lack of trust? Of course they see it. You don't come across as trustworthy. And that is why, as we mentioned before, the team that you put together has to be a very strong team, a trustworthy team. Well done, Taysir. Thank you, sir. So who is resisting change? Based on the studies that we conduct, normally employees resist change. Around 39% of the employees resist change. So you can see you have to put a strategy there. As well as management. Management is not that far behind. They are about 33%. So you have to put the strategy around these things. And that's very, very critical, okay? However, I told you that people deal with change with different intensity. Look at this one. If you are an innovator, you are the first one to jump onto change. So for you, your intensity is very low. You love change. But you also have the early adapters. Early adapters, okay, are the ones with little bit more intensity toward change, but they are watching the innovator. Say, you know what? If the innovator will take it, I will go for it. So those of you who are innovators, you should pat yourself on the back because you could be the spark for change. Early adapters are also important. Now, the one that tips the scale is when you put early adapters and early majority together. So early majority is very important in your change because when you add 20% to 30%, you have 50% of the population working for the change. And that's very critical. That's a mass. Late majority, 30%, well, when you have 50%, the late majority will join. Laggards are those who don't want to change. Usually they're around 10% of the population. And by the way, you might see these percentages in different numbers. So you might say innovators 2%, that's fine. But the distribution curve is very, very similar. So ask yourself, which group do you belong to? While you're thinking about that one, let me share something with you. Also, the reasons that people also react to change, some of them are because of individual factors, and some of them because of group factors. Individual factors, what's in it for me? Individual factors, you have to learn a new skill. Individual factors, all of these things are there. But group factors, it could be that if you are a manager, maybe your people like you a lot and they will listen to you only. They won't listen to the change champion. Or maybe you have a union. In some companies and countries, they have unions there. So you can see people, how they are working together and influencing each other. That's what we call the group factor. While individuals, that has to do with you yourself. Okay? Now, stages that people go through when they are resisting change. This is a fantastic model. It is a very, very good model. And this model is very good for you to remember. Typically, when people are going through change, they go what we call the Sarah model. First is the shock. I can't believe this is happening. So it's the S in Sarah. The A is the anger. Hey, so this is what I get after all of these years. You probably hear it from some of your friends. And then the R is the rejection, pushing back and saying, this must be a mistake. We cannot take another change here. And then, of course, the acceptance. But between the rejection and the acceptance, as you can see, I have something there called introspection. Introspection is similar to the transition. You remember the transition, we talked about it. So one of the key things is the introspection is where you're thinking about it and saying, listen, okay, so the change is happening. What do I do now? So you start thinking, getting used to it, adapting yourself, and then you move into the acceptance stage. Maybe this will affect me. Maybe I have to do something. Maybe I need to participate. Maybe I need to talk to my manager. And then once you start accepting the change, you ask yourself, listen, I need some help here. Can you help me adapting change? Maybe can you help me learn this tool? So it becomes very important. So that's what we call the Sarah model. The Sarah model is very critical and it manifests itself in this way. As you can see, the transition stages, you are transitioning from, if you don't do anything, you are in danger zone, and if you move into the future, you are in the opportunity zone, because that's where it is. Under the danger zone, people deny. So it's similar to shock, similar to, as we said in the Sarah model. Okay, they don't like it, they don't accept it. So this is very, very critical for you. Okay, and so anger, rejection, resistance is where, you know, they are rejecting it. And then this over here, right over here, look at that. This stage over here, this one. This is where you are transitioning. This is what we call the introspection. You're thinking about it. So you start moving to the exploration. You start accepting the change. You start asking questions. And then from there, you move into the commitment stage. Okay? So my advice to you, whenever you're dealing with change, make sure you move as fast as possible through this. Provide the tools to get to this stage as fast as possible. Don't spend too much time here and don't spend too much time here. This, if you spend lots of time in this area, you're actually exposing yourself to danger. Here we go. So what can you do? Well, here are some approaches to dealing with change. Educate and communicate. Ask people to participate and involve. Facilitate and support. Sometimes you have to negotiate new agreements, and sometimes, unfortunately, you have to use some very forceful means like manipulation and cooptation, and sometimes you have to basically put your foot on the ground and explicit and implicit coercion. If you don't do it, you know what happens. So look, management is not easy. Change management is not easy. But as a manager, if you want your change initiative to succeed, you have to use all of these techniques. I recommend the first 4 are very important. Always leverage positive, but sometimes 2%, 3% of the time, you may use these 2 at the end of the day. If you can avoid them, it's for the better. Dealing with resistance to change. So you need to adjust the way you manage change based on the stage of the change you're in. Let me see. Is it this one? No, it is this one here. You need to adjust the way that you manage change based on the stage of the change you're in. Can you help me answer this one? Thank you very much for your participation. Yeah, Taysir, you're right. Yeah, very good. Thank you, Ala. Well done. Well done. Very good. Very good, guys. Very good. Excellent participation. I'll give you a few more seconds here so that, you know, want to make sure I finish on time. I don't want to take a lot of your time. I want to thank you for being with us today. So here we go. I'm going to end the voting right now. This is a very high percentage. Well done. Look at that. So all of you said true. You are right. Well done, guys. Well done. This is very good answer. Very good participation. So what's going on here? Look at this. Whenever you're dealing with change, based on the situation that you're in or the stage you're in, you have to manage things differently. You know, because people react to different change initiatives in many ways. Look at this. Look at this. Here it is. When people are in the denial phase, you want to present information, you want to give facts, you want to initiate discussions. Sometimes you have to confront. But when you are in the resistance stage, you have to listen. You have to acknowledge feeling. You have to solicit responses. If you go to exploration, you have to facilitate, you have to stimulate, you have to brainstorm. But when you go to commitment, you have to celebrate. You have to recognize and you have to acknowledge. Don't forget to celebrate, please. Because when you move from all the stage over here, all the way over here, I think it's worth a celebration. I think so. Okay? So as you can see, every stage of the change continuum requires a certain style of management. So well done who said true. Well done. I'm very proud of you. How do you communicate change? Let me see if you can answer this question. Managing change does not require a specific communication strategy. Any communication strategy will do. Is this correct? Let's see how you answer this one. Managing change does not require a specific communication strategy. Any communication strategy will do. Very good. Well done, you guys. Well done. Very good. Fantastic. I'm going to now try to end the voting. This is very good. Well done, guys. Wow. Okay, so I'm going to end the voting. This is very good. Well done. Sharing the information. There it is. All of you said, you know what, Jamal? We believe that managing change requires a specific communication. So you said false. That's very good. I'm proud of you. So What do we do then? If I want to talk about the communication strategy, always ask these 6 questions. Without any hesitation, always ask, who do I communicate to? What to communicate? When to communicate? Where to communicate? Why and how? Every time you sit down, always tackle these questions, because tackling these questions, you are able to develop a very, very powerful communication plan. A few things you have to watch out. Never ever assume when it comes to communication. Don't assume people that heard you. Don't assume that your message was understood. And don't ignore history. You see, sometimes we make these mistakes. It really affects your communication strategy. So make sure that you don't assume things, especially with these things over there. And whenever you communicate strategy, you have to divide it into 3 parts: before the communication, during the communication, and after the communication. Here are some hints. If you are communicating before the delivery or before the communication, always be prepared, always anticipate a question, always rehearse your opening and your presentation. Don't beat around the bush. Don't go into big, lengthy presentation and talk about things that people get bored with. Check your attitude. The second one is prepare information. Prepare the information. Be ready for these things, okay? And look at that. Muhammad is telling me, Jamal, we have so many HR projects. I agree with you. Many of them will require, okay, to make sure that you do necessary change for the employee. Prepare audience. Prepare the audience. Consider the timing. Is it early in the morning, at the end of the week? Be careful of the critical. But I like to share with you something. Always use stories. Always use stories. The power of the stories is fantastic. They make quite a difference for you, and they can make a huge difference in the transition of the change, because when you tell stories, people believe it. For example, look at that company. It did great when they changed. So when they see that there's a story behind it, people believe in the change. Let's start wrapping up here. These are my last slides for today. Is culture the easiest thing to change? Let me see. What do you think? Culture is the easiest thing to change. I gave you the answer at the beginning of the day. When I started my seminar, I told you, I gave you a hint. Let me see if you are still with me. Very good. Well done. Wow. Look at that. Good job, you guys. This is fantastic. Very good. Now, let me go ahead and end the voting just for the sake of the time. As I said, I want to respect your time. I don't want to keep you here more than necessary. Look at you. Well done. Fantastic, fantastic participation. It is false. Culture is one of the most difficult, if not the difficult. Okay? Culture organization change. People are always comfortable with existing organizational culture. This means that they're not going to accept a new culture unless you tell them why you're doing it. And it's a journey, but you have to make it easy for them, comfortable. Sometimes you have to accept that there will be some pain. How compatible is the change with the existing values? Be careful with the values of the company. And what about the dedication of the people? This is very critical. People have to be fully dedicated for the change, for the culture change to take the steps that you need to take. Always remember, necessary components behind change: create the value and belief system, practice effective communication, review organizational structure, redesign your approach, and reward recognition. This is, to me, is the baby. This one here. Do you see this one? You have to change the reward system to encourage the new culture to take place, the new behavior, and always review all the work systems. I like to leave you with this one. This I love tremendously, because actually, if you want change to take place, you have to have the beliefs, the vision, the mission, the incentives, the resources, and the skills. Anything that misses out, you only achieve something different. If you leave the beliefs out, indifference takes place. If you leave your mission out, mistrust takes place. If confusion is out, if a mission is out, confusion takes place. If incentives are out, resistance takes place. If resources are out, frustration takes place. And if skills are out, basically anxiety. Whenever we deal with change, there are different types. Some of the changes happen from the top down, some of them are lateral, and some of them are from the bottom up. We like the ones from the top down because we believe that the leadership is providing us all of the necessary tools. But don't be surprised if it happens laterally between departments. And sometimes someone of you might come up with a good idea and might drive change from the bottom up within your organization. How do you sustain change? These are some good ideas. Always make sure that you don't let the existing culture dictate your approach. You have to deal with the existing culture and replace the existing culture. Focus on the future. You may have to destabilize your group deliberately. And it happened with GE. It happened with many companies that I'm aware of. They destabilize groups intentionally. Care harder, disarm the old culture, change the reward system, keep the score, and make sure that you free the people, let them come up with new ideas, and make sure that the bureaucracy is not there. Here are some references for you to read. Excellent books that I would like you to keep in mind. One of them is about change. That's John Carter, the first one, Leading Change. The other one is about Switch from Dan Heath. Excellent writer when he talks about change. Then you have the Change Making, okay, from Richard Bevan. You also have Agile Change Management, very nice book. And Habit, The Power of Habit. Oh boy, if you want to buy a book, get this one. This is a fantastic book. Charles Duhigg is a very good writer. If you want to read something about change, something that you want to read about in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maximum 15 minutes, get this book, Who Moved My Cheese, a very nice story. And then you have the ADKAR as a methodology. You also have the New Way, business process change, and all of these things. Listen, guys, it was such a pleasure talking to you. My name is Jamal Saeed. Here is my email. Here are some upcoming courses that you can attend. We have one in July coming up in Kuala Lumpur. Make it. I hope to see you there, or in Dubai sometime in December. I'd love to see you there as well. Other than that, I want to wish you a wonderful afternoon and a wonderful weekend if you're celebrating your weekend tomorrow. And thank you so much, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. If you want a copy of this one, just send me an email. Here's my email again. Just send me an email and I'll send you a copy of the presentation. And I hope to see you in the future webinars. Take care, you guys.
Meirc.com